Hi, and welcome to That's Wild, a podcast series brought to you by the National Parks Board. I'm Elliot, and I'll be your host for this series, where we'll be talking to special guests from the nature community about topics surrounding biodiversity conservation in our city and nature. Today's episode is going to be a bit different, so we won't be focusing on specific animals or plants, but we'll be focusing instead on the topic of environmental education and the kind of work being done in the field. We'll also be talking about how you guys can get into this field with tips from our special guests here today, Dennis and Sam, who have been working in this field for quite a while and have lots to share with us today. Welcome to the podcast, guys. Could you guys maybe introduce yourselves a bit for the podcast?
Yeah. So, hi, my name is Dennis. I'm from the Untamed Paths, and I am a lead facilitator and a nature guide.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm from the Coastal and Marine branch of the National Biodiversity Centre at the National Parks Board.
So to kick things off, I understand you guys have brought something to talk about your work, representative of what you guys do on a daily basis.
I brought a light, actually, field light. I mean,
Nice.
this is an essential equipment while doing what I do. So, be it at night or in the early mornings. So, the field light is basically an off-camera kind of light to kind of light up the subject. And it doesn't give that harsh light as your phone would. Yeah, so we just put it at the side and then we just video it with the flash off. And it will give a very nice and diffused light.
Yeah, and I see, Untamed Paths, on your account, you always have some really nice videos. So
Yeah, so
good
it's
to know this
a
is
credit to this
what's behind it, yeah.
tool. Yeah.
And Sam, yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you brought it, I was like laughing because I also brought a
Oh,
light.
light.
I brought a headlamp, my trusty rechargeable headlamp. Also because work in the dark a lot. I do a lot of intertidal field work or bringing people out for guided walks. So with low tides in Singapore, they're usually at dawn or at dusk, which means there's a good chance that you'll be working in the dark for a good part of the whole trip. So you always need a headlamp on you so that you can look for stuff. And I like it because it always reminds me of the whole experience of exploration, like because you are out there hunting for things, which I think the appealing things of being out in nature, like we can actually still kind of be a bit of an explorer in that sense. So yeah, the headlamp I think to me is quite important and meaningful.
I think it's quite amazing. In Singapore, we can still have that kind of exploration also and like find new things.
Yeah, it's not something that people often think about,
Right.
like being in such an urban area. But if you look closely and you know where to look, there's always a lot of interesting things. And then there's that joy of discovery.
Right. What's like the most exciting thing that you guys have found recently?
Ooh. For me, I saw an estuarine seahorse like a couple of weeks ago,
Cool.
and that's always exciting. I mean, they are found in the northern shores, Changi, Chek Jawa area. Not super common, so it's always exciting to see one. Yeah. You?
I
Too many.
no, too many. I think seahorses probably last week, and I think the butterfly ray a few months back.
And that was it's probably southern part of Singapore.
Butterfly ray was at Changi.
Oh, Changi. Wow.
Yeah, it was at
Okay.
Changi.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
We're
so-
both at Changi.
Yeah.
It's a great place to be. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, butterfly ray was kind of swimming in a little tidal pool, and it was giving off this like little eye shine when you shine the
Nice.
light on it. So initially, I thought it was a normal like mangrove whip ray.
Yeah.
But then as I approached it and it kind of revealed itself, I was like, oh, actually it looks like a kite, and it's pretty impressive.
So it's called butterfly because of the shape. Or...
Yeah, I think so.
I brought something different. So I mean, I've done a bit of environmental education. Currently, I'm very into fish, like stuff that's sold in the wet markets. So what we've recently started doing is taking photos of all the fish in the wet markets, and then also doing our own like fish printing, because we find it's a very useful tool for educating the public on different types of fish. Yeah, but basically what I have here is a piece of fabric, and then there's a print of a gold banded jobfish, or in the wet market or supermarket they're called white snapper, or I mean local names like angkoli or kerisi in Malay. So this is kyotaku. So it's like a Japanese printing technique where you put ink on the fish and then you put either fabric or, well, traditionally it's washi paper, it's the rice paper. So this is us trying it with fabric, and it turned out pretty well. It's life size, so I think that's the coolest part,
amazing.
right? Can't bring like dead fish to a booth. I mean, you could, but it starts smelling and things like that. Enough about myself. I think I wanted to start with how it began for you guys. We could start with Dennis. I think your journey is quite an interesting one, right?
I guess you can say that I'm sort of an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't set off on this journey wanting to start a company, for sure. I just kind of fell in place gradually. Like I said, I didn't come from like a environmental studies background. So I did vet bioscience in poly, right? And then I did marketing as an undergrad. The in-between, I was kind of wondering, would this field be a viable career? And 10 years ago, I guess it wasn't. Yeah, but now there are more opportunities available for people to pursue. Eventually, I started taking out people, friends from overseas actually, who want to kind of explore the nature of Singapore, specifically snakes. And then it kind of expanded from there. Yeah, into like marine stuff, intertidals, diving. And yeah, so it's brought me to where I am now.
And do you think that the reason for the opportunities being available now is people being more interested, or do you think it's just the industry has become a bit more dynamic?
I think both. People are getting more interested in nature for sure. And also we are updated, technology, infrastructure, which will mean more opportunities for people to get into.
Right. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, I think when I first started out, there were also not so many opportunities. And I knew going into uni that I like nature, the life science degree, but wasn't, say, particularly attached to the marine or terrestrial environment. I actually wasn't even that outdoorsy a person. My parents didn't really bring me out. I didn't really go out to explore on my own until I started diving. So I went to do NUS Dive Club, went for a couple of trips, and then really kind of fell in love with like the marine environment, struck by the beauty of it, and basically it's almost like an alien world that you can visit. So when I came back from the trip, I was like quite determined to then do a research project in one of the marine labs, which I did with Prof Chow and then Professor Peter taught at NUS, and then kind of fell into this whole research world. So I think Dennis was saying, right, previously there were not so many opportunities within this field, so a lot of us came in through the research route, and that's how I really got started. I just basically started as a undergrad projects, and then I stayed on to do my research assistant, joined nparks for a bit, then came back to do my PhD, and then now I'm back at nparks again. So my whole journey got started at the marine labs in NUS. Yeah.
Right. You guys learn the ropes when doing the research, and after that, it kind
Yeah.
of easily translates into,
Yeah.
education and outreach.
Yeah, so I mean, that's how you end up in the field. My first job in nparks was an outreach job. I actually was asked to set up the bird watch in nparks way back when, but at that time, not a bird person. At that time, mostly just stuck with the marine realm. So also had to learn quite a bit about birds and then be enthusiastic enough to teach the public about birds, which was quite an experience. So yeah, I think it all links up, right? Because whether you do it through research or from going out for walks and stuff, you fall in love with this environment, nature, and then you want to share that love with other people. So you do it through outreach and hopefully try to change some minds about these places so that you can hopefully preserve it for future generations. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important job, right? It's quite often overlooked, as with many parts of conservation
Yeah.
and the environmental sector, right? If you can't communicate it to the general public, then not saying research is useless, but it loses a lot of its value.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can't communicate it to the average person.
Yeah.
So in, I guess, your daily work, how do you guys go about doing this? What have you learned so far in communicating the general public? What are the key things that you guys need to remember or practice that enables science to be easily transferred over to your average participant?
I think for me, I have to keep reminding myself that when you talk to an average person in public, they are not as interested as you. And that's always a hurdle that you have to get over. I'm sure it's the same with Dennis. It's like when we mix with our regular friends or people at work, we are really mixing within our echo chamber, right? Everyone is really interested in nature. When you see the snake, everyone's like losing their minds. And we're used to that kind of reaction. But then when we go talk to the public, we forget that actually most people don't care. Most people don't know enough to care. So then you have to remind yourself of that time when you first got interested, what got you interested, and try to talk to them from that angle. Basically bring it back to a very like fundamental basic level and try to excite them in a different way. Like if you tell them that, oh, this is like a rare snake, they've never even seen a regular snake. Rare snake is like, irrelevant to them, right? So
Yeah.
I think trying to put yourself in their shoes and then exciting them as someone who's never interacted with nature before, that can be a bit tricky.
Yeah, so I agree with Sam because, again, 80% of the people out there probably have a whole new different perspective on wildlife and biodiversity from us. It translates into the way they interact with animals as well. It could be going out intertidal zone and, for example, just manhandling certain animals or carrying tools. This does not mean that they have any malicious intent. It just means that they don't really know how to properly interact around animals.
Yeah, I think we don't have a very strong nature education kind of focus for the young. And probably an artifact of us being such an urban place, right? But in other countries where they live a lot closer to nature and where learning to live with nature is a very fundamental survival kind of thing that kids need to learn. When you see that this is how you interact with it. We don't have that in Singapore yet. So I think you have a populace that when they see a sea cucumber or when they see a wild boar, they don't know what to do with it. Or most likely take out their phone and take a picture, right? So that needs to be brought across more strongly, I think.
Right. I think there's the general sentiment that there should be more environmental education in our, school curriculum in Singapore. And I think that there have been efforts to introduce more of it into the curriculum. So moving forward, what are your thoughts on the private sector approach and then also government approach? Do you think there's like opportunities for collaboration? Have there already been opportunities for collaboration so far?
I feel like the government would have to set a path
Yeah.
for us to follow, and then we know that they're supportive of this idea, right, and of these different initiatives. I mean, that's important. In the private sector, I guess that's where we have the manpower and the strength to carry on bringing people outdoors, carry on like engaging members of public and students even.
The government can set the tone and usually have tools to reach out to a wider community, but we don't have the people to like run these trips and create those more personal experiences for people, which I think the nature community, whether it's the guides or whether it's NGOs, they fulfill that very important role of education. And obviously formalizing it within our educational structure, that's very important as well. I think now if we have opportunity to educate their children, we can actually get them to educate their parents who probably missed out on all of that when they were growing up. So I think that helps a lot as well. nparks tries to work quite closely with MOE to really introduce these aspects into the curriculum, because from what we've mentioned before, it's really important that people know how to behave with animals, how to interact with animals living in nature. It's always a struggle because there's only so much curriculum time, and MOE obviously has to choose between so many different core messaging to bring across, but we do try to work quite closely with them. But it can't just be the government always pushing it. I think there is a lot of room within this ecosystem for the NGOs, the nature community, nature guides to step in and help provide these more personal experiences for people to interact with nature in a safe way, to teach them the different ways to interact. I think there's definitely a role for all of us to play, really bring the messaging across a very diverse public.
And do you guys see a lot of like genuine interest from the students in general? Might take them a while to warm up, but I think for me personally, leading people on walks and things like that, nature is just intrinsically very interesting to people. It might take them a while, but most people are quite interested to see what the natural world has to offer. But I was wondering if the same experience with you guys.
So for the members of public who actually kind of join in these walks, they would naturally be interested in
It's a
whatever's out
method,
there, right?
yeah.
Because they are paying for an experience,
Yeah.
right? Whereas for schools, it may be different because there may be a small subset of students who may not be as interested and they may wander off in their own thoughts, in their own world.
Or are they fearful?
Are they fearful? Yes, we get those as well. We get people or kids who may not want to get into the water or get close to the water or even get close to hermit crabs, for example. Yeah. I think it's a lot on doing it slowly and progressively. Yeah. Just slowly introducing these creatures and habitats to students.
It's time for Nature Nuggets. In the spirit of our podcast title, That's Wild, we wanted to ask our guests to recommend something wild that they've come across or enjoyed and that you can check out yourself too.
As a nature guide, I would naturally recommend a place. And for me, I think Peninsular Malaysia is a great place to explore. We are so close. You could just take a car across the border and explore some of the sites that are in Johor, closer to home. And even in that forest, you would find things that you probably would not be able to find in Singapore. Just getting out there and into different countries and getting a new perspective on wildlife in that country, that would be a very valuable experience.
Any particular nature park or nature reserve in Johor?
In Johor, I usually go to Panti and around the Mersing area for shorebirds. Panti Bird Sanctuary for birds and Mersing Shore for the migratory shorebirds.
Yeah, for me, I would go closer to home for people, especially first timers who have never gone for intertidal walks. Changi Beach is always a great place to go. You can always look for the low tides on NEA website and then look for a tide that's 0.3 meters or less, and then basically just go and walk around and see what you can find. Usually there'll be lots of people out there already looking for things. So if seem to be interested in something, go and take a look. Don't touch the things, especially if you don't know what it is, because you never know what might sting you or bite you. But it's a great way and kind of a low effort way to go out and start your exploration discovery journey. You actually see lots of interesting things. I mean, you both mentioned things like seahorses, you can see horseshoe crabs there, octopi. Always fun to visit Changi Beach. How about 6 or 7, I would say.
Yeah, I think those are some great recommendations. And I guess if people, can't find anything, they can always reach out to you guys. So what are some other, aspects of your day-to-day work that are quite common?
A large part of my job now, unfortunately, is quite office bound. Part of what I do at the National Biodiversity Centre is development consultation. So, anytime someone wants to build something or develop something in the coastal marine environment, they come through us and we assess what the potential impacts might be, whether they need to do an environmental impact assessment, what needs to go into this EIA. It's very administrative, but I think it's a very important safeguard for our marine environment, the biodiversity, and the different habitats that we have around Singapore. I used to do a lot more citizen science work. I used to run Intertidal Watch, and I still run Team Seagrass, where we would bring people out to survey the shores, teach them surveying techniques. Intertidal Watch, I've kind of moved on to someone else already, but nparks has recently launched a seagrass restoration project. So hopefully with this new project, I'll get to go out in the field to do more science, do more research. That's what I'm hoping will be in my cards coming soon.
So my day-to-day is quite dynamic, I would say. I go out into the field maybe about 5 days a week, different parts, different times. As part of the Untamed Paths entire program list, we also do our night walks at areas that are accessible to the public even at night. But we try our best to not disturb wildlife by not shining too harshly around and minimizing our noise. I mean, aside from that, I also do a lot of like logistics support, administrative, boring
Yeah.
things.
Boring but important for
Yes,
people.
boring but
take note,
important for an organization to run. Manpower as well, just sorting out different guides according to their own skills and their own like comfort levels. So aside from guiding, aside from admin and logistics, I guess that would be it.
So, I mean, you mentioned that Untamed Paths does like trips overseas. So, how did you get into that? And where do you guys even go?
Okay, so for Untamed Paths, right, we do lots of education and outreach in Singapore. Essentially, that's what we do locally, right? This would involve lots of guided walks, lots of booths, assembly talks in schools, and different workshops pertaining to biodiversity and animals. Now, for our overseas programs that we kind of curated, it came about because I left my full-time job in 2022. At the same time, borders kind of open up, right? And I've always wanted to do conservation work of sorts. My idea of conservation is roughing it out in the forest, doing field work every day, and trying to make a difference somehow.
Mhm.
Then I was like, okay, how can we in Singapore help improve things abroad, right? So one way could be donating. For me, I was trying to find a way or figure out how we can do things a bit more hands-on. Not just on bringing people there to look for wildlife.
Yeah.
We try to involve them in research of sorts. For example, collecting data for king cobras in Bali.
Yeah.
So whenever we bring a group, this group travels around different parts of the forest looking for king cobra nests, and we obtain the geolocation, humidity, temperature, etc., etc. Yeah. And this data is valuable because it would tell us a lot on nesting habits of the king cobras, whether or not certain king cobras return actually to the same site to nest, how far they can actually cross to get back to a certain site. So in that aspect, people from Singapore can participate in these camps and directly contribute to the conservation of these animals.
Quite an important part of that is also developing the ecotourism in these countries also, because you need to provide them with an alternative livelihood. If you're saying, okay, you can't do like bush trapping and stuff like that, this is the alternative. It is better for the environment, but it's also more lucrative, because at
For
the end of
sure.
the day, you don't want to be telling people what they can and cannot do when it is their livelihoods, right? I think projects like this, where you are bringing together interest and therefore also money from, more developed countries to the developing countries, and providing them with the resources they need to transit to a cleaner or more environmentally conscious way of living, I think that would be very important.
Yeah. And I guess with that comes, its own bunch of challenges and opportunities as well. So I wanted to take a bit of time to talk about that. And especially for Dennis, how was it like starting your own company? I'm quite sure that must have been pretty challenging in
Right.
itself. What were some of the main, hurdles that you had to overcome?
Okay, I guess the first hurdle when people ask me what were the challenges, I usually touch on me not being from that environmental circle,
Yeah.
maybe like 10 years ago. So it would be slightly easier to get into this if, for example, you were to study like BS and NUS,
Yeah.
right? You would have known a group of people, and then your mentors and your lecturers and whatnot would give you that little access into wider circle, right?
Yeah.
And for someone like me, who have no
Like network at the start,
network
right? Yeah.
at the start,
Yeah.
you had to do everything yourself. You had to build your own blueprint on how you do a guided walk. So all these things you had to touch and go and tinker with. So that was a challenge, recceing multiple sites. Not only did we have to choose or pick a site that was interesting, I also had to pick a site that was easy, accessible, convenient for people. Those are things that you have to weigh when trying to recce a new site for a guided walk.
Were you alone, or did you have like a group of friends who were doing this with you?
Many years ago when I was in poly, I did vet bioscience, right? And it was supposed to be a stepping stone to actually get on to become a proper vet. But it wasn't my ambition to be a vet. So I only signed up for the course because of this module called Aquaculture and Fish Disease in year 3. That was the closest I could get to getting involved with wildlife and animals. While doing the vet bioscience diploma, I met a group of friends who I used to go out a lot with for frogs and snakes.
I mean,
It's like, so going clubbing, then
and
you go like into the
yeah,
forest to
It-
look for
it-
snakes.
yeah, it's interesting because it's like a hunt.
Yeah.
You are looking for certain snakes that behave in a certain way, that feed on a certain thing, that are active in a certain time of day. And in doing so, it kind of exposes you to many other things in the forest. And eventually that led me somehow into the marine stuff.
Because you're always looking for a new place to explore,
Yes,
right?
yes. And even when you're looking for snakes, when you're looking for aquatic snakes, you're close to the
Yes,
sea.
that's true.
Yeah. So that kind of led me there, and I started seeing what is cool octopus and cool like horseshoe crabs and stuff. And I guess that kind of blossomed into this now.
and when did you realize that this idea could work?
I think during COVID, when I didn't really have much of a choice. Yeah. So I graduated from the marketing degree in 2020, and I was about to get into a marketing role in another sector. At that time, I was also guiding freelance. I decided not to take up the full-time position, and I just went all in guiding. Just started a website, and I was just checking out if people would be interested in guided walks that we do. Yeah, and sure enough, people were stuck in Singapore, so they were looking for things to do. And that kind of was the launch of Untamed Paths. Yeah, 2020.
So how many like guides do you guys have now?
Across the years, we have trained many. Many have also left. Yeah, but we've also trained many. So I would say currently we have like about 30 to 40
Wow.
facilitators, ad hoc mostly. Full-time would be myself and one other. And we do take in interns from time to time. Yeah. Because it's a small team, we wear many hats.
Yeah,
so
I can imagine.
yeah.
I mean, it's a small team, but I think managing even 30 to 40 ad hoc people also is still quite.
Yeah.
It's different people with melting pot of different personalities, right?
Different
So just
specialties
coming
as
in.
well. I
Yeah,
see.
interest. Some would prefer to guide more intertidals than night walks. Some are afraid of going out at night. Some are afraid of snakes. One challenge is also to blend these people together.
And for Sam, what has been the main challenge? Your work that is to do with environmental education.
Yeah, I think I touched a bit on it just now about introducing people who have not been exposed to this to suddenly say, okay, this is nature, this is, what's interesting about it. And sometimes we get like a selected subset, right? If we're doing a guided walk or if we're doing citizen science programs, people who sign up are naturally interested. So it's not hard to talk to them because they want to listen. In the past, especially when I was doing more outreach role where we had to do, let's say, Festival of Biodiversity, right? We do this once a year in usually a heartland area. And you get like, tons of people passing through, just checking it out with their kids. And you meet a lot of people who are completely uninterested. They thought that you're giving out free tissue paper or something like that, Then they'll come by or they just want to get like a free sticker. Then you have to try to like break the ice and talk to them. That's always a bit hard to me. I think what I face a lot more in my job now, I don't do so much public facing outreach, but I work a lot with other agencies. And actually, a lot of them are also completely unconverted. This whole nature thing is not on their radar at all. So then you have this nparks person telling them that, oh, you have to make sure your development doesn't impact nature. And they're like, what are you even talking about? So then there is that communication with developers, with people from other agencies to sensitize them to the nature that's around them, around their developments, and how to be sensitive to it.
I think that's probably just one out of many challenges that you
Yeah.
face, doing environmental education in Singapore. Yeah, that being said, people like us that work in environmental education, there is always something that drives us. We're definitely not in this for the money. It's always about passion and a drive to make an impact. So for you guys, what's that impact that you guys would like to make through your work, or maybe have already started making, but any future goals as well?
I guess it goes back to reaching as many people as possible, and not just that, but converting as many people as possible.
Right.
For nature guiding, it's people kind of thing, right? That as a nature guide, I'm sure Elliot,
Yeah.
you would know as well. The best nature guides can make a seemingly boring animal interesting to anyone. So it's not only about being able to spot stuff, or not just on your knowledge as well, but being able to kind of translate what you know in interesting and fascinating manner. So I guess for us at Untamed Paths, we probably want to reach out to as many people or convert them.
Yeah, I think that's a true test, right? When you are at a site and then that day there's just nothing,
Yes.
right? Whether you can still pull it off,
Yes.
with
Yeah.
your audience. Yeah, I think very well put.
Well, for me, kind of like following on from that, it's from the influencing people to seeing how that becomes an impact eventually. I think I've been around in this field for a bit longer. So you start seeing people, kids that you used to bring out for your Team Seagrass trips. And then suddenly, hey, this guy got a job at nparks. And it's like,
Right.
they are actually coming into this field and trying to make a difference themselves. A lot of them go on to do high degrees or PhDs and go into research. So I think it's that seeing how your influence, and not saying that I personally influence these people to go into this, but like being a part of someone else's journey into nature conservation, to a career in nature conservation, or to them making future impacts is always very gratifying to see.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam, you're talking about, one of the impacts that you strive for is for more people to join the industry, whether it be environmental education or otherwise. So is there any advice you guys would give young people who want to pursue similar career paths, maybe more specific to environmental education, but also, I guess, broadly, like the green sector?
I think finding your tribe, your network, your community is very important. Like, it's actually a fairly small community. So try to get in, get to know people, understand the different roles that are out there. Like, then says actually now the field is quite diverse. You can do quite a lot of different things. There's consultancy, there's government policy, there's academia research, but there's also more NGO or businesses that kind of work within this sphere. And people kind of all know each other. So I would say like go in, try to meet people, know your tribe, figure out what you want to do. And you do need people who are equally passionate, who believe in the same things as you, to kind of like keep you going and committed to, so that you don't lose sight of like the bigger picture as well. I think, find your community. I think that's very important.
I guess it's find your interest. And I think it's a whole big topic that encompasses like entomology or your snakes and stuff like that. So if you would want to get into biodiversity, it's important to kind of focus on something first before kind of expanding into the other fields.
I think that's some great advice. Hopefully this inspires, some of our listeners to get into this field where we are all hoping to see a lot more people get into environmental education. It's very important. And I think the more people we have, the more impact and change we can make, hopefully. So I'd like to thank both of you guys for joining us on this podcast and our listeners for listening to this episode of That's Wild. And if you like our content, you might want to tune in for more episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to show your support by hitting the follow button and giving us a 5-star rating. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.